Psalm 93 is a collection of psalms between 93 and 100 that are a unique, special kind of psalm. They were used, most scholars believe, during the time when Israel had returned from exile under the rule of the Babylonians. And when they returned home and the Lord allowed them to take their land again and become a nation again, they used these psalms. They would sing these songs in the temple. They would sing these songs together as encouragement of who their God is. And, you know, it's interesting, this time during Israel's history, this was after Jerusalem and the temple was destroyed. Okay? And then Israel spent 70 years, upwards of 70 years, occupied or in exile with the Babylonians. So these were a displaced people. They were under the rulership of a foreign nation and foreign rulers and customs. And yet they had this identity given to them as children of God, with a promise on their nation that God would be with them and God would walk with them and God would move mightily on their behalf as a nation. And here they find themselves 70 years under exile with the Babylonians, and Jerusalem, their city, and their temple where they would worship, destroyed. And as they move back and the Lord allows them back into their land, they are still under Persian rule. So they'd gotten out of Babylonia, and they were now under Persian rule, but they were in their own land. Are you guys following me? I'm doing my best to explain that, to give us some context. But you can imagine 70 plus years of under this rule, having their communities completely destroyed, their city destroyed, their place of worship destroyed, and having come back, and now they're in their land, but they're still under foreign rule. And this is why, and this is when they began to recite and sing a psalm like Psalm 93. This was a time when they were focused on rebuilding the temple. They were focused on restoring their communities, their cities, their families, their customs, and they were worried about and dealing with the economic struggles that they were under and the opposition from neighboring nations. This is what they were going through at the time. And so this was a time where they were singing to the Lord, remembering these verses, these scriptures, this psalm, singing it out to God, because they needed their identity reinforced, that they're the children of God. And they needed faith that God would remain secure even during uncertain times and upheaval. And so I don't know maybe what you're going through in your life right now, if there's uncertainty, upheaval, if there are changes or problems or financial situations or mental health situations or relational situations. There's so many things that we could be going through on a personal level, not to mention that we are in an election season. And I just want to preach and proclaim this psalm on this Sunday morning as we prepare our hearts for what could happen in the next several weeks as well. So we don't know. We just went through a tremendous hurricane. I've got two coworkers who live right there in Florida where this hurricane went through, and there's been deaths and flooding and houses lost, and there was a hurricane and a natural disaster before that. And sometimes we look around at the chaos in our lives and the chaos in our world all around us, in the governments and the election processes and the natural disasters, let alone all the things that I'm trying to deal with in my personal life and your personal life. And sometimes we got to stop and remind ourselves that the Lord reigns. Israel was deeply shaken as a nation. You can imagine the questions, you can imagine the frustration. of all the things the Lord had done, all of the blessings, all of the goodness, the glory days. And everything's destroyed, and they don't even have rulership over the land. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on 8 aspects of the Lord reigns. And this is how the psalm starts out, Psalm 93:1. It doesn't give any explanation. It doesn't give any theology. It doesn't give any, deep sort of explanation about any of this. It simply declares, the Lord reigns. The Lord reigns. It is a matter of truth. This word, these 3 words, shapes the worldview of every Christian and every believer. This should be the anchor, the worldview, the foundation, the way we see the world is that the Lord reigns. Amen? This is how we have to process and stand on faith and stand on the trustworthiness of our God, even when we see all of these things around us that are troubling us, and we don't know what's next, and we're not sure what God is up to anymore, and we don't know what his plan is, and it seems like he may have forgotten about you, or maybe you don't know what the future holds. This is where we stop like the Israelites did, and we say, the Lord reigns. The Lord reigns. So what does this really mean, the Lord reigns? What does this mean? I got to say, if I was God, this would be one of my favorite psalms, because it talks about my flex. And sometimes when we begin to unpack and we begin to focus and meditate on these 3 words, the Lord reigns, what does this mean? It will fill you up with a stability and strength of faith that you need as we head into uncertain times. The Lord reigns exclusively. The Lord reigns alone. This is what it means. The Lord reigns. Not kings. Kings don't reign. Not presidents. Presidents don't reign the universe. Not countries. Not the deep state. Not the Illuminati for the conspiracy theorists and those who are deep into those things, which there's probably some truth to a lot of that too. They don't reign. They think they reign, but they don't reign. Not even Satan reigns this earth. There is no cosmic battle between God and Satan. That's not good theology. There is no there's no tug of war. There was no threat to God's reign by Satan. Satan is nothing more than a dog on a leash, fulfilling the very purposes that God would have him to fulfill, even though he is a fallen angel, wreaking all kinds of havoc. God uses all things together for good. Satan doesn't reign on earth. He's just here for a little while, angry and mad and upset, but there's no war or battle. Satan's already a defeated foe. He was defeated before he was ever created by his master. Why? Because the Lord reigns. The universe is not a democracy. It's a theocracy. The universe is ruled by Jesus. He was not put into office. He can't be taken out of office. So no matter what political ruler we hope wins, or whatever trust we put in the political systems, or what's going on with the United States of America, the Lord still reigns. Even if the United States were to fall, which I hope it never does, but the Roman Empire fell when no one ever thought it would fall. And if something were to happen The Lord still reigns, and this is what rules our hearts. As we understand how the Lord reigns, the Lord will reign in your hearts. In Isaiah 45:5, I am the Lord, and there is no other. Apart from me, there is no God. The Lord reigns exclusively. There is no competition. There is no threat to his lordship and reign. There is no potential circumstance that could usurp his lordship and reign over the universe and the world. Let it be established, the Lord reigns. The Lord reigns constantly. He didn't just reign in the Old Testament. We're not waiting for Christ to return so that then he can start to reign. He reigns now, today. He reigns constantly. He reigns in every season, every valley that you go through, every mountaintop that you're on. The Lord still reigns every moment of every day. From eternity past to eternity future, he's never been in a position where he was not the supreme reigning power over everything that exists in this dimension and any other potential dimension. When the rug gets pulled out from under you, God still reigns. When you don't understand what God is up to, he still reigns. When you've lost all of your strength and you don't have anything left to do or to give, he still reigns. He reigned when you were young and you were vibrant and you were strong, and he reigns when you are old and feeble and weak. He reigns. He reigns when you are healthy. He reigns when you are sick. He reigns when you are rich, and he reigns when you have not. He reigns in every moment, in every season, and every outlook and perspective, and every circumstance throughout the corridor of time. He reigns, and he will always reign. So he is constantly on the throne. God doesn't have to take a nap. He never sleeps or slumbers. Psalm 121, he will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. Behold, he who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. God's never off duty. Come on now. God never has a bad day. God's never taken by surprise. And the reason why this is so important, because we're talking about a superior being who's very uniquely different from us and our finite abilities and our frail flesh and all of those things. Even though we're created in his image, we are inferior beings to the one who reigns. He reigns even when there are evil dictators ruling countries. He reigns when it looks like everything is out of control, and where could God possibly be? He still reigns. There is not one molecule or atom or any created or invisible thing that stands in rebellion to the sovereign king without him reigning over that situation. When Adam and Eve sinned, he reigned. When the devil rebelled and he was cast down, he reigned. When evil took over the earth and everyone did what was right in their own eyes, Jesus still reigned. When the Antichrist comes and rises up and takes political power in the Middle East and causes everyone to be forced to worship him or lose their lives potentially, Jesus still reigns. The Lord reigns actively. Actively. This is important. God is not just observing the affairs of human history. He's governing the universe. Sometimes we can slip into a deism mentality. Deism is a belief in God, but a belief that God created everything, wound it up like a wind-up watch, and just let it go, took a step way back, and just lets it unfold the way it unfolds. That's deism. That's not Christianity. Jesus is reigning and ruling and actively involved with every affair that happens in the universe. There are no accidents. There is nothing that happens by surprise. There is nothing that happens outside of his sovereign knowledge and his permissible will for it to happen. If it happens, God allowed it to happen. Because he reigns. He's not just sitting there watching and wondering what's going to happen with the election or what's happening in the Middle East or what's happening with Iran attacking Israel, just wondering. No, he's already decreed what will happen. He's already decreed the outcome. He's directing the affairs. He overrules things. He presides over things. He resists things. He causes things to happen. Are you guys with me? Romans 8:28, we know that all things God works for the good of those who love them, who have been called according to his purpose. Sometimes in my life, I have looked around at the things that I'm going through, and I've wondered, God, what good can come of this nonsense? This is absurd. This can't have any goodness that can come out of this mess. Have you ever felt like that before? There are times when I have to stand on Romans 8:28 by faith and by faith alone. And because I can't make sense of it all, I'm not the one who reigns. I have to trust him that he's the one who reigns. God is involved far more imaginably that we can't even comprehend the extent to which God is actively involved governing the world. It's so easy for us to get caught up in what's happening around us, like Peter on the water walking, and the waves come and the winds blow and the storms, and he begins to sink, and we forget who's reigning. If you've got something going on in your life and you can't make sense of it and you can't comprehend it and you don't know what's going to happen, you don't know how this is all going to turn out, and you're just really struggling and wrestling with your Creator, I want to remind you this morning that God reigns, and you will have to trust him that everything will be worked together for good in your life as a believer. Sometimes it seems that God is not active. Sometimes it seems that the good die young and the evil get away with murder. But they don't get away with anything. God is reigning. He's sovereign. He's in control. The Lord reigns comprehensively. By the way, we haven't even gotten past the first 3 words of this psalm. Okay? So, we'll be here a long time today. The Lord reigns comprehensively. If the Lord doesn't reign comprehensively, he's not Lord. The Lord reigns over every nation. He reigns over nature. I work for an organization called Best Christian Workplaces, and we work with ministries all over the world, large and small. incredible ministries. Two of our coworkers, as I mentioned, live in Florida when this hurricane was coming through. And they just had all of this stuff happen some weeks before, and we were all praying because we knew the only one who could cause that hurricane to lessen would be him. There's no one else you can call on. When the problem gets too big and it's an act of God, that's why we call it an act of God. That's the only time the news stations get spiritual. They call it an act of God. God can speak to a storm. He's so in control that when Jesus was in the stern of the boat and everyone else, even the professionals, thought they were getting ready to drown and die, and the boat was going under, Jesus was sleeping like a baby. He reigns over the storms. He reigns over the nations. He reigns over every king. He reigns over every president. He reigns over everyone who is exalted and put in a position. He reigns in every event. He reigns over every dimension. They're starting to talk about, I think there might be aliens. This is part of social media. I mean, talk about all this. Aliens, you know what aliens are? Demons. That's what they are. If there's something manifesting that people think is an alien, it's a devil. It's a demon. However it wants to, or it's China with some technology that makes us believe things so we're distracted and then they come and get us. That's another theory. But either way, Jesus reigns. No matter what dimension it is, no matter how far out you go in the universe, he reigns. Everyone and everything is under God's jurisdiction. So why does this matter? It matters because when you have a God who loves you, and we're talking about this kind of king who loves you personally, what situation in your life is the one that slipped away from God's jurisdiction and out of God's comprehensive reign and power and authority and sovereignty? It's not possible. Matthew 10:29, if not 2 sparrows sold for a penny, it's cheap, 2 sparrows. And not one of them will fall to the ground apart from your Father. Do you see this? Every little crawling thing, every creature, every little bird, everything, God knows about it and is reigning over it. Doesn't happen apart from the Father. The Lord reigns majestically. We saw in Psalm 93:1 that the Lord reigns and he is robed in majesty, which means he reigns majestically. God's reign is not dull, boring, distant, or disengaged. The idea of being robed with something means he is enthroned as a glorious king, full of awe and wonder. Which means the works of God, the reign of God is something to behold. I mean, you just look at creation and it's the wonder of God. The way God reigns is awe-inspiring and worthy of our praise and worthy of our reverence. Every time you look at a little baby that's born, or I look into my son's eyes, I am looking at the incredible majesty of the king who reigns over all the universe. When a sinner, see, this is this awe-inspiring reign of the Lord. We forget about it when we get into the daily routines and the minutia of our lives and the idiosyncrasies of our lives, and we get focused on all the little things, and they become so important. We lose sight of of how majestic he is, how beautiful he is, how incredible he is, how attractive he is, how majestic he is. What does it mean that he's robed in majesty? It means that the things he does are like beyond our comprehension. They should stir us into absolute wonderment over this incredible creator. He rules with justice. This is a just God. He saves wretched sinners. Listen, every time somebody gets born again, this is a supernatural event that happens. They go from death to life, from spiritual darkness into spiritual light. This, ladies and gentlemen, is awe-inspiring, that God would send his only son, Jesus, to live a perfect life, to be among us, to demonstrate his character, his goodness, his love, his perfection, his power, his glory, demonstrating his reign over nature and creation and over sickness and disease, and showing his heart and his will to restore people out of darkness and into life. This is awe-inspiring from this Lord, where taking undeserving people full of enmity against God and dying on the cross for us while we were still sinners. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a majestic king who reigns. He heals the brokenhearted, ladies and gentlemen. This is the majesty of God. He delights in forgiving people. He's slow to anger, quick to forgive. He turns ashes into beauty. The life you lived that was nothing but a heap of ashes and destruction. And he takes that and says, I'm going to make something beautiful out of those ashes. This is a God who turns lives around, gives people purpose, allows you to participate in the work he's doing out on planet Earth, so that God would use you to be a vessel of an eternal purpose in somebody else's world, to give you the ultimate sense of purpose and meaning in your life. This is an awe-inspiring, majestic king. I hope I'm getting something to you. This is a God who laughs at his enemies, ladies and gentlemen. This is not like any other ruler or king or president or power or structure. Heaven is his throne and earth is his footstool, and he laughs at those who would try to frustrate his purposes and plans. And he crowns us. He crowns his people with tender mercies and love. This is such an awe-inspiring, majestic king that he created you to be the recipient of divine, supernatural love and mercy and affirmation and fullness of joy and meaning in your life, not only in this life, but the life to come for all eternity future. And eye has not seen, and ear has not heard, neither has entered the heart of man that which God has prepared for those who love him. You have an incredible future because God is an awe-inspiring, majestic king. Not just a king who rules, not just a king who's in control, but a king who is robed in splendor and majesty. He does things excellent. He does things beyond. He does things in a brilliant, absolutely incredible way that we could not even fathom the things that God does. We can't even comprehend the thoughts of God. He gives us this imagery for us to understand this God that we're dealing with. The Lord reigns powerfully. He reigns powerfully. You know, I'm a little upset because I got to go to the Seahawks game last Thursday. And it was a beautiful day. The setting was perfect. We were playing, San Francisco, our rivals. Everything was perfect, except they didn't play good and they lost again. And the last 3 times I've gone to a Seahawks game, they've lost. Starting to think it's my fault. But the thing about this king, he never loses a battle. He never fails. He doesn't fail. I posted this picture of my wife and I, before the game, all happy, smiling. Sun was beautiful blue sky behind us at the field, whatever it's called. Lumens Field. And then after the game, it's just like, oh, what a bummer. And I posted underneath my image, I thank God that Jesus never loses. Your fantasy team might lose, but Jesus doesn't lose. Your business might have failed, but Jesus doesn't fail. You have an anchor to your soul, to a king who reigns and rules and cannot fail. When he speaks, things happen. When he decrees something, it's coming forth. When he promises something, it never falls under. When he declares something, it is true. It is trustworthy. He reigns powerfully because his words are backed by the full weight of his omnipotence. Oh, we can talk about the strength of our military, the United States, and I believe in peace through strength. That's what I believe. Peace through strength. Want peace, promote peace by being strong. Don't mess with us, basically. Don't mess with us. You don't want to do that. The United States military arsenal is as laughable to God. His omnipotence, he has the power to bring every purpose that he wants done to come to pass. That's why you're saved. You're saved because of the all-powerful, benevolent, omnipotent God saw to it that your sins would be taken from you because of a son, the God-man in the flesh, Jesus, who died on the cross. And he elected you to be part of his kingdom. You didn't put your faith in him because you're so smart or you figured it all out. No, he drew you. He revealed it to you. Flesh and blood cannot reveal this to you, but only my Father in heaven can reveal this to you. He loved on you. He drew you. He was patient with you. And you are aware of his reality and his goodness because he is powerful. That he could even break through your stubborn heart and my stubborn heart and somehow show us who he is. The only reason you're going to heaven is because God said, I want that to happen. When you're born again, he says, it is predestined that you would be conformed into the image of his son. Whether you like it or not, you are getting holier and holier and more like him and more like him and more like him. And he doesn't leave you out in a ditch and start something and not finish something. You cannot fail because Jesus is, his grip of grace is on your life. You will not miss heaven if you put your faith in him. Because he who began a good work in you will complete it until the day of Jesus Christ. And the author of your faith is also the perfecter and the finisher of your faith. He will take you all the way to glory and beyond glory. And there's nothing that can stop or prohibit the purposes of God in your life. That's why we get up and praise him and shout glory, because it doesn't always look good here on planet Earth. And I might have messed up and been broke, busted, and disgusted, as I used to say. But God still prevails in your life and in my life. The devil's the accuser of the brethren. How do we overcome? The blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. He's died and he's risen. And I have been found in the secret place. I am in him, he's in me, and no one can snatch me out of his hands. Because the Father, the one who reigns, is greater than all. The Lord is immutable. I'm almost done. He reigns immutably. The world itself is firmly established and held together by God. I personally really like Elon Musk. I don't know if you like him, but he's just a brilliant guy. He's an inventor, a creator, an entrepreneur. He's the richest man in the world. The man is just remarkable. I mean, the things his brain can do, I don't know what God did when he made him, but he gave him a brain a little bit smarter than mine. And he has a vision. And his vision, have you ever wondered why SpaceX exists and all these rocket ships are going up and everything he's trying to do? Like, what's the purpose of all of this? I started wondering that. Why is he doing this? What is he trying to do here? Is it just to like advance mankind and to just advance space technology? No, there's actually a purpose and a vision behind what he's doing. And his vision is to create a multiplanetary existence on Mars that is self-sustaining, to preserve consciousness. You see, he doesn't believe in God. He sees the potential of this thing going up in flames. And so he wants to preserve human life by making us multiplanetary. It sounds kind of cool, but I prefer Earth, just so you know. There is no apocalypse that will happen outside of what the Bible describes as the day of the Lord. What will be the end of the earth? The day of the Lord. There is no plague that will end the world. There is no nuclear winter that will end human existence. There is no climate concerns that will end existence. AI won't end existence. The end of the world, the end of the age, will happen on the day of the Lord. The Bible says in Revelation 21:1, then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. The first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea no longer existed. God has a plan for planet Earth. He has a plan for the heavens. And on the day of the Lord, this earth will pass away, and there will be a born-again earth, a new earth, a better earth, a place where humans will reign and live and walk together with Jesus for all eternity future. We can put all the money and resources in becoming multiplanetary species. But ultimately, Jesus, he's still in control of this thing. Finally, the Lord reigns eternally. No one can dethrone him. His kingdom has no end. And though everything in our lives can change, Jesus says, heaven and earth shall pass away. They may pass, but my word will never pass away. His kingdom is eternal. He's always been king. He will always be king. And today is the reminder that God reigns in your life too. After these couple verses, we go to verse 3 and 4, or verse 3, I should say. And the psalmist goes right from the Lord reigns, and he's robed in majesty, and he's robed in power, and he reigns, he reigns, he reigns, he reigns, he reigns. And then the psalmist says, and the seas have lifted up. Lord, the seas have lifted up their voice. The seas have lifted up their pounding waves. In other words, there is what would appear to be a resistance, a rebellion, a chaos, a circumstance, a problem that would seem to be so mighty, using the sea as an example. I don't know about you, but the sea is a scary place to me. How deep it is and how vast it is, and who knows what's down in those deep crevices in the seas. But it's not just a sea, it's the seas. They're boisterous, their waves are pounding in there. It's so powerful. We've seen the effect of a hurricane and flooding and what a sea can do to create havoc and devastation and problems. And the psalmist is saying, this is what it feels like. It looks bad. It doesn't look good right now because the seas are stirring, and it would appear that this is beyond even what any king could handle. I want to ask you a question this morning. Are the seas lifting up in your life right now? Do you hear threats of pounding waves in your life? Today is a reminder that God reigns in your life. In the final two verses, here's the psalmist's response to this. He says, mightier than the thunder of the great waters, mightier than the breakers of the sea, the Lord on high is mighty. Your statutes, Lord, stand firm. Holiness adorns your house for endless days. Imagine being a little Israelite, so persecuted, 70 years in occupation over in the Babylonian, and then finally released under the Persian rule, and your temples are destroyed and your cities are destroyed. And you're just like, Lord, what is your plan here? And he says, mightier, 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 mightier. God's promise over you are certain. What are the statutes that God has over you? They're his promises. They're his spoken word. His affection, this king's focus, affection, power, and intentions are directed right at you, right at me. So what do we do in response? Well, we lift up our hands and let's just stand to our feet together. I don't think there's really much more of a response than just saying, God, I'm going to trust you no matter what. In fact, when I consider the majesty of your reign, I am in awe-inspired wonder. I can't even comprehend your intellect, your power, your goodness, your glory, your majesty, your beauty. Jesus from the streets. Come on, sing it.